episode of Screen Heroes. My name is Ray, and I am with Ryan.
Hello.
And Ian tonight.
Hello.
We are going to be talking about our favorite animated TV shows. Now, this can be, we discussed, there's no holds bar. You have to pick your favorites and talk about them. So, web series can count. Anime doesn't.
CGI.
Yeah.
You name it.
There's no...
If there's no live action in it, it counts.
Right. I'm good with it.
Yep.
We got a little bit of news. Kind of a slow week in the world of entertainment.
Very slow.
Yeah. Hasbro is being a bunch of douches and suing DC over the name Bumblebee because the world cannot tell between a high school black superheroine and a robot that transforms into a car.
Yeah. I mean, I never knew the difference. Did you?
No.
Yeah. No.
I'm actually hoping that Hasbro wins and they combine the character. It's just one character.
Into one.
Yeah.
Like Bumblebee
So
just transforming.
Make Bumblebee?
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
I mean, Bumblebee's already a Bumblebee.
Bumblebee is
It's
Bumblebee.
ridiculous. I don't know why the main reason is because Bumblebee, the solo movie, comes out in 2018. They want to sell the merchandise, but I don't know when Transformers was officially created, but Bumblebee was created in 1977. So
Chat says it was created 5 years earlier, but I'm thinking Hasbro's logic is since DC lost the lawsuit against Marvel over Captain Marvel, then DC is just a big pushover.
I mean, I'm hoping they don't concede because then they would have to rename the character, and that's just too much.
Yeah.
That's too much. Especially since 1977 to all of a sudden go, lawsuit, gotta change the name.
I
Shucks.
love my insect-named superheroines.
They're
too,
fun.
You know?
It's a
We
fun
have
little name.
Spider-Man and Black Widow and Wasp and Ant-Man.
Yeah.
The DC needs them too.
Yes. So give them Bumblebee. Hasbro, stop it.
Bumblebee is adorable.
Yeah.
Well, they're not going to stop it.
No.
But
No.
DC's
It's
not going to
ridiculous.
lose unless they,
Concede.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, so that's that. There's a little bit of Marvel news. MCU tweeted out pictures of Evangeline Lilly as Wasp.
Who looks
A
amazing.
little bit disappointing. I
It
liked
was-
the gold that
Right.
was on the one you saw at the end of Ant-Man in the post-credits scene.
Completely
It's the same
different
costume.
It
No, it's
is
not.
not.
It is.
No,
They did-
Sleeveless. Do you not know the difference between
Well, it was
sleeves?
like it was
Did
in
you run a costume
production.
fashion show?
Yeah, shut up. It was like being built then, so I assumed they would add sleeves to
Yeah,
it.
and then completely change the color.
Yeah.
Like
Almost the same color.
no, it's all black.
It's a
It was
blackish
some
blue.
Okay, it was
boobies.
gold. Like the whole front of it was gold in one of the.
They did a
post-credits
comparative.
scenes.
Look at the picture again because they did
We
a comparative
will.
Yeah.
contrast.
I'm
We will.
with Ryan here.
I thought it looked almost similar.
No.
Similar
Well,
is
plating is all
different
similar, but
than...
coloring is all different.
Anyway. Yeah, so what do you guys think about Misty Knight's robo-arm?
I think it's cool. I had no problem with that. Obviously, they're not going to go with a full, Jax style silver or gold.
I was expecting
arm.
something more. Like I thought that when she gets her robo arm, it's from Tony.
It's not coming from Tony. Did you watch Defenders?
Yes,
It's gonna come from Rand. That's
but see, that's the problem
Rand
with
isn't
Defenders.
flashy.
They don't really mention any of the MCU, so it's just like it's Tony who did it, not Iron
why
Fist.
would he do it though when they have a billionaire on their own team?
Because
and
Tony's
he
better
owns the
than Iron
hospital.
Fist.
Whatever. He doesn't care.
Tony
about
is
Flair.
better than Iron Fist. I agree. I guess I'm thrown off because it's longer than her left arm, and since both the picture has
The
both
picture was
arms down.
awkward. I mean, was
Is
it
she like
actually
this?
longer? I feel like the gun,
Well,
the
it's
way she was
definitely
holding
longer
the
'cause of
gun,
but I
it's black, and the black gun made it look really weird.
Maybe. I
Can
don't
she
know.
extend her arm? Maybe. Is she-
I will be watching that very closely.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I am happy that it happened. What do you guys think about them tweeting it like a week after Defenders?
I feel like they're kind of spoiling it for fans, but at the same time, if you saw the Defenders, it's inevitable it was going to go that
Or
way.
if you saw Luke Cage, because she gets her arm injured in Luke Cage too. It's
Yes, but they don't go that route, which is
No.
kind of stupid, but, whatever.
yeah, I mean, it's fine. They're not going to go with a gold arm.
No,
and something that's
yes.
supposed to be so realistic and gritty. It's going
I
to be
agree.
like more of a prosthetic look. And I think that they did that and kind of blended it with the technology fine. It's really hard to judge something like that based off a single still.
Do you
And I
think
try
they're
not to do
going
that.
to give her super strength in the arm?
I'm sure that
There's
they'll
gonna
be
be something,
augmented. Yeah, something in the arm for sure.
Follow-up question. Do you think she will replace Iron Fist because that's his power?
No, because it's not going to be obviously as
I think
powerful
she
as
should
Iron
replace
Fist.
Iron Fist. But that's
Someone
just me.
should.
That's just
Maybe
me.
just the actor and the writer for the character.
Yeah.
Well,
Let's get rid of Finn. Okay.
That's it for news, really. There's nothing else.
No, the Runaways got some screeners out to
cool.
To some critics, and I think it was like the first 3 episodes, and it got really good
That's good.
reviews. People are really in on it. That's the Hulu exclusive Marvel show. If you're not familiar,
Is that the XMen?
no, that's Gifted.
That's
I think.
Gifted. Okay.
But this is I'm not familiar with the characters or anything. Rachel probably would be because she's more of a Marvel fan, but it's getting good reviews, and I'm excited about it just because of that.
The Runaways team up with the Young Avengers at some point,
Okay.
and they form a little like teenage group of them. They're the children of former villains, or like they're reformed villains, or they are incarcerated or dead villains.
So it's kind of like the equivalent to Young Justice, but reversed.
Very similar, only they're all broken home kids,
Okay.
and orphans, kind of thing. So that was really cool.
Yeah.
I heard Inhumans was unwatchable until Joss Whedon got
No,
his hand on
you're
it.
mixing that up. See, that's Justice League. It's only DC properties that are like that.
That are unwatchable.
Unwatchable, yeah.
of
Until
course.
Joss
Marvel
Whedon.
properties, amazing.
Yeah.
Golden.
Especially Joss Whedon.
Especially Inhumans.
Yeah, and
totally.
definitely Inhumans. It's going to be great. Go see it. But Justice League, check out Rotten Tomatoes first.
Yep, that's what we base our stuff off of, is Rotten Tomatoes.
Oh.
Chat is about to explode.
Yeah. You're about to
That's
hurt
all right.
somebody's feelings. Okay.
He's not here.
So do we want to talk about this?
About what?
I feel like that's an insult.
What did he say?
Doc Rev.
What was that
Fix your
about?
typo.
The print's too small, I can't read
I think
this.
he meant to say "Hey Heroes,"
Yeah.
and he said something else that rhymes with "Hey." That's not insulting necessarily, but definitely.
Yeah. Okay. So let's get down to brass tacks. We are talking about our favorite animated TV shows, web series, basically just series altogether. We've each prepared quite a few. We're gonna stop when time runs out.
Yeah,
Cool.
that's when we start throwing out the honorable mentions and
Yeah.
like speed round.
Lightning round, that
Yep.
kind of thing. All right. Who wants to go first? Ian.
Everyone's looking at me, so I'm going to guess me.
Ian.
All right, cool. So I start off with a little sugar, a little spice, a little everything nice.
Oh,
So Powerpuff Girls.
the best.
Mind you, a lot of these cartoons, I grew up in the 90s, so it makes me feel really old when I say that. So I grew up in the 90s, and a lot of these cartoons I grew up with. So Powerpuff Girls was very much something I grew up with.
I really feel that if you don't have something on here that is a nostalgia factor,
Mm-hmm.
you're not truly living.
Yeah,
Like,
it's true.
cartoons help shape minds. So
And here's the thing, 90s cartoons are way different than cartoons now.
absolutely,
They get away with so much more stuff, and it was less censored, and less parents saying this is wrong, it shouldn't be like this. Nowadays, you can't draw anything without having some kind of parental group come down and
80s cartoons were even worse. Just FYI.
were they?
In terms of like the things they could get away with? Yeah.
oh yeah,
I think we only have one 80s cartoon on here, maybe two.
HeMan
but
would not be that naked.
That
if he
is
was
true.
Made today.
but Powerpuff Girls, it wasn't just made for girls; it was catered for guys as well.
Yeah,
And that was kind of the first cartoon that I was introduced to that did that.
yeah.
I had some great, really fun villains. Mojo Jojo. Him was a cross-dressing devil.
And
Which was
nobody
interesting.
seemed to care.
No, they just knew that it was him, and they were scared to death of him.
Yeah.
But yeah, I love the Powerpuff Girls. Not the new one, but the old one.
There's been quite a few attempts to reboot it, and all of them have really just not done that well. So I agree. Powerpuff Girls is on my list too. I thought it was a fantastic showcase of superheroes.
Mm-hmm.
I thought it was very well written all the time.
It was a
I
great
thought-
influence for little girls, too.
and little boys.
Mhm.
Let's not, diminish that aspect. However, I think it just stands as a good show. I watch it now as an adult, and it has some fun social commentary that I didn't catch as a kid. It has fun innuendo that I didn't catch as a kid. I really like it.
Yeah, it's a good cartoon.
I literally know nothing about that cartoon other than the name of it.
You be the buttercup of the group.
That seems like not truth, but I don't know enough about it to argue, so...
Okay.
Just nod your head and say okay.
Okay.
Then Ryan, you're up.
Oh gosh. Okay.
Oh gosh.
Okay, so I'm gonna save my nostalgia for later because I feel like that was kind of a nostalgia pick. But
sure.
All my picks are nostalgia picks.
Yeah, that's fair.
Because I'm a '90s kid.
I'm just gonna start off with One Punch Man. That's one that I've talked about on the show before.
We had a whole episode because of your request.
It's an anime. If you haven't seen it, it's the premise is kind of what if a godly superhero existed, and what would that be like? What would his life be like? And essentially, it turns into a parody, more of a satire, I guess, than a parody, and a deconstruction of the genres of superheroes and just anime in general. It got ridiculous characters similar to some of the old 80s TV shows and cartoons. And it was very smart. It's a very smart anime for what it is. You would look at it on the surface, see the art, and not be too impressed, but there is a lot of really beautiful art in the show. It's definitely worth a watch if you like your cartoonist to be a little bit deeper.
Agreed.
The main character is the least interesting character in every scene he's in. He's just bored with being a hero. He does it just for fun, like it's just a thing he does, and he's completely bored out of his mind because he can beat anybody in one punch, and it isn't a challenge. Nothing challenges him.
So is it funny?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely definitely humor based, but it's not like a drama. But there are dramatic things that happen during it, but they're always ended because like you have a character that can literally beat anybody with one punch, so you always know how things are going to end. It's just how you get to that point, and the other characters that can't just win with one punch that make it more interesting.
I thought it was kind of like a cartoon version of Arrested Development in the sense that you laugh at all the tragedy.
Yeah.
you know?
It does a really good job of using tragedy as a comedic tool, and how ridiculous the characters are is also part of the comedy. And
I'll have to check it out.
Yeah, it's on Hulu and Netflix.
Okay, cool.
Dubbed and subbed, I believe, on both of them. So
be sure to watch us on Twitch, and if you are watching on Twitch, you should join in and tell us what your favorite cartoons are. Up next, I'm going to talk about one of my favorites that the world will just not let die, and that's Venture Brothers. I am addicted to that show, and I have been since it first came out. This started as a parody on Johnny Quest and ended up expanding and just, I guess, being a parody of all 70s cartoons. There are ridiculous references to Batman, the Hardy Boys, and Scooby-Doo, and it's so funny.
I've seen that one. Is that the one does it have like Jackie Kennedy in it? Or someone that looks like Jackie Kennedy with like a pink. And I think, is it the right thing I'm thinking about?
Yeah,
okay,
you are.
Cool.
Yeah.
All right, then I've seen it.
They have ridiculous characters, both good and bad. There's, like you said, the Monarch and his wife, Dr. Mrs. the Monarch.
Okay.
There's Phantom Limb, and like almost 90% of the adult male characters are pedophiles. And,
except for the one giant dude. What's that dude's name? The guy that's like the bodyguard.
No. Oh, yeah. Okay, so Brock Sampson,
yes.
played by Patrick Warburton, is just absolutely incredible in that role. Like, that was the first role for me that convinced me he could play someone other than the Tick. Because before that, I couldn't see him as anything else.
He did the live action of the Tick, yeah.
He did. And when I saw him as Brock Sampson, I was like, this is perfect.
Yeah, I haven't seen the whole series. When I used to have cable before I cut the cord, I did catch several episodes and I really liked it. And it's on my list of things that I need to watch at some point. I haven't watched it at all.
It's on Hulu. If you love irreverent comedies, if you love parodies, if you grew up in the 70s, you'll definitely love this. So just check it out. I highly recommend it.
It's back to me now.
This is up next.
Is it back to me? All right.
It's back to you.
So I'm bringing an anime now. This is an anime called Panty and Stocking with Anarchy.
Oh my god, you love that so much.
It is ridiculous.
Yes,
and it's very extra, like myself.
You are.
So this is why I like it. Basically, it's about two angels, Panty and Stocking, who got kicked out of heaven because of their bad behavior. And in order to get back into heaven, they have to kill all these demons and retrieve heaven coins.
In all fairness,
It sounds like a video game.
If God names his angels Panty and Stocking, what does he expect?
Wait, does God name his angels?
I'm going
I
with
feel like
that.
when they die, they just keep their names.
They never really say if they were named that or not, but Panty is very sex crazed.
You don't say.
Stocking is
Loves feet?
No, she's very goth and loves sweets.
Okay.
And they fight these two demon sisters named Scanty and Nisox. And Scanty and Nisox is kind of a parody on Team Rocket.
Interesting.
And they have like a little demon Meowth. It's very funny.
Yeah.
And extremely inappropriate. And I love it.
I think so far
And
all
Garterbelt.
of our stuff has been inappropriate.
Yeah,
pretty inappropriate.
And there's a priest named Garterbelt, and he's hilarious.
Oh yeah, that's not.
And there's it, yeah.
Okay.
And
Is everybody named after a piece of clothing?
no, but Panties turn into like a gun, and Stocking turns into like a katana. So
everybody is named after a piece of clothing.
no, well,
Can you name a character in that show that isn't named after
The
a piece
mayor.
of clothing? His name is just the mayor?
yeah, the mayor,
Okay, so we don't know
The
his real
mayor.
name.
Mayor.
Oh, okay.
Mayor.
So we don't know his real name. Chances are it's Earmuff.
Yeah, something like that.
So Ryan, if you were named after a piece of clothing, which one would you choose?
Top hat.
Top hat.
Ooh. What would yours be?
Cotton muff.
Is that a piece of clothing?
Yeah, there's
What's a cotton muff?
there's muffs for you.
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
that's what it's called.
I didn't know
It's-
that. Interesting.
Okay.
Mine would be G-string panty pant.
G-string panty pants.
Yeah.
I was thinking monocle for you, but, you know.
No, that's Derek.
Yeah, that is Derek.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
can see that.
You're so a monocle. All right, Ryan. What's up?
Okay. I guess I'll go with a more nostalgia pick
Yeah.
on this one. Going back to, well, actually, this is kind of two. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
Okay.
So there's been several Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles series. The one that I'm more familiar with is 1987.
Sure.
Which I'm kind of grouping that with the 2003 and this one just because they're very different, but both have a lot of qualities that are admirable to different people. The 1987 one is more like the Adam West, kind of silly, campy.
Yes.
Individual episodes tell a whole story. There's no overarching plot line or anything like that. And then the 2003 is more like the Michael Keaton. You got the darker, grittier, more serious, and then you get an overarching plot line through the whole season. I wouldn't recommend if you liked the 1987 version going back and watching it as an adult because it'll probably sour you on it.
Yeah.
A lot of the animation was not good, especially in the later seasons. The characters that got introduced were so bad.
Yeah.
They were at a certain point. It just became about selling toys, and so they would introduce these characters so they could make a toy of a Dalmatian firefighter or something like that.
Yeah.
So lots of nostalgia on that one. The show had its good qualities. The 2003 show probably better overall if you want to watch a Ninja Turtles.
It was tighter. It was a little better written, and the continuity was there. But at the same time, it doesn't have the staying power that the 1987 one
No,
had.
and it went for a long time. The 1987 one
It
did.
did.
Yeah. So
I do
sold a lot of
agree with
toys.
you though. They stopped caring after like season 2.
Yeah.
There were issues where all of them were the same color for no reason, and they introduced Venus to Milo for some reason.
Lord. We don't talk about
We don't
Venus.
talk about that.
Yeah, I mean
It was bad.
It was.
How's the turtle got boobs? Like, explain.
They're not
that.
mammals.
I've never seen a single Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle, so I don't know.
Not even not the movies or
The
anything?
live action,
Not-
yes. I've never
not
seen the
even,
cartoons.
like,
But, okay, so you saw the original 90s ones?
No. Not like
There were live action movies in the 90s.
but I saw like the most recent live action
Why would you do that to
Oh.
yourself?
because it was a free movie.
Okay. I'm going to tell you your homework before we let you on the podcast again is to watch at least one of the first 2 movies, Secret of the Ooze or the original
Is it
TMNT.
on Netflix?
Probably.
Okay.
Or
Yeah.
Hulu. Could be on either one. You have to agree with me on that, Rachel. He can't be on a movie podcast
No,
not
I
having
agree.
seen either of
All right,
those.
which one should I watch then?
I think it depends on what you want. Like, I would say that the first one is probably a better movie overall.
Okay.
The second one I remember more.
The second
from
one
my
is
childhood.
fun. Vanilla Ice is in
Yeah.
it.
All right, I'm not gonna watch the second one. I'll watch the first one.
The first one was good. Yeah.
Okay.
I don't think you'll have any problem. It was
Cool.
Jim Henson that did all the.
Okay, well then
puppetry and
yes.
stuff,
Okay,
so-
I will watch it then. Yes.
Okay, so I'm going to talk about something that's really relevant, something that's going on right now, and that's My Little Pony. Now, I was not a fan of the 80s and 90s cartoon. Like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, this has had several reboots. They've tried to start it up, but it was the recent 2011 version that really stuck. It got a good fan base. It got a good creator that really transformed the characters. Because before this, it was, again, just a push to sell a bunch of toys. And the whole characterizations behind them were just obsessed with makeup and hair. And there was a lot of gossiping on the show. It looked like it was just bad. Just really bad. So this one's not about that. Everybody is well thought out. Everybody is developed. They have solid A, B, and C level characters. They have great voices. John Delancey, who played Q on Star Trek, he's in it as a regular occurring guest. They've had, Tara Strong voices the main character. They've had Weird Al Yankovic on the show. Like, it's a fun...
It's a phenomenon.
It is. There are cultural cons dedicated to this show now. It's got a major motion picture coming out. It already has had 4 movies appear straight on Netflix. So it's a big deal, and I think it resonates with quite a few people, child and adult, boy, girl, femme, masculine, whatever. It can definitely get
Into everyone's group of
everybody
interests.
can connect with something in it. I understand if you don't like the overall show, but I feel like it has a character for you.
So who's your character? Who's your pony?
Pinkie Pie.
Pinkie Pie? Okay.
She's always happy. She's always optimistic. She's everything I want to be. I feel like she's the best friend on the show, and like she just makes everybody smile and makes cupcakes all day. So that's what I want out of life.
I mean, if you want to make cupcakes all day, I will come over and
Because
pick
your
them up
cupcakes are
from
really
you
good, yeah.
on a
They are
regular
very
basis.
good.
Rachel is good with pastries.
Yes. Do you have a pony, Ryan?
Thank you.
I don't know.
What's
Poopy
Ryan-
pants, probably, because I have IBS. Is that a pony?
It is now. I'm
Okay.
gonna draw it for you.
What's
Thank
Ryan's
you.
pony? Do you have a pony for him?
This can't end
Ryan,
well.
no. I wouldn't pick a pony for
Thank
him.
you.
What's
Ryan,
that goat one?
Wow.
Okay.
No, there's a
Wow.
goat. There is a goat.
That is Discord.
There we go.
And Ryan has said multiple times that he would DM a My Little Pony D&D game for me.
That's true.
And he would play it. He would be Discord.
Yeah.
And
essentially.
I would love that.
Yeah, I'm all about it.
So I wasn't wrong.
Okay. I do want to hit up chat at some point. We have Derreck in chat, who's one of the regular hosts of Screen Heroes if you tune in every week. And he is really, really obsessed with something tonight. And that is something that you brought to the table here, Ian.
Literally.
Your ice. He is
Well,
very
that's real
upset about
unfortunate,
that.
Derek. I'm thirsty.
He said he's banning ice to the table. We had somebody mention Bleach.
Yes.
Doc Rev mentioned Bleach in the chat, which I've never seen. It's an anime. Supposedly it was really good. Yeah, he said you're nasty based on your show pick. The anime
one?
sounds nasty.
Oh.
Um,
Well, sir, no, we're going to watch it. I'm going to make you watch it.
no, that's not Derek. That's Doc
Oh.
Rev.
I'll make him watch it.
Yeah, so that's pretty much it from the chat. Mostly just Derek whining about ice and Doc Rev actually giving.
Do you want me to get a
somewhat
water
constructive
bottle? I'll
feedback.
get a water bottle.
And Rachel's peeing offset if you're listening to
What'd
this.
you do?
I added more water so it wouldn't make as much noise.
Thanks, honey.
And we're back. Ian, what's your next?
I chose something that introduced me to this franchise, and that is the 90s X-Men cartoon.
Oh,
I had that as an honorable
good
mention.
show.
X-Men Evolution was good, but X-Men the 90s was just so much better.
X-Men Evolution was not good.
Well, when I was younger, I thought it was good, but
You
no.
watch X-Men in the 90s, and you watch Wolverine and the X-Men in the 2000s,
Mhm.
you realize how bad X-Men Evolution was because
That is
they
true.
didn't care. They were trying to make toys.
I will, yes.
That's all.
So the 90s X-Men was before, I saw the live action X-Men. It was before I read the comics. It was before everything. So this is my introduction to it, and it was the classic yellow and blue costume. Storm was in her classic white outfit.
Love that.
Mystique
costume.
wasn't naked. They did the Dark Phoenix storyline properly.
Yeah.
And they did a lot of these stories, and a lot of these they delve into a lot of characters' backstories. Lady Deathstrike, all these minor characters got really great story arcs.
Each
It was a
episode
great
was
one.
a 2-part episode.
Yeah.
So you
At
always
least.
wanted to tune in next week, and it went through the gamut. It had 5 seasons of 20-something episodes. So it starts off with Jubilee and ends up with, Apocalypse, and they go to Savage Land.
Yep.
And they do so much.
They did the Days of Future Past storyline
Yeah.
in it. They
They
did a
did the
lot of great
Hellfire
X-Men.
Club.
Yep. They did a lot of great X-Men arcs in this cartoon. They, toned it down for kids, yes, but at the same
Absolutely.
time, the social issues and, what's going on was still very relevant. They still kept that in there, which I was very
It's a
happy
good
with.
show.
It
That
is.
show was my introduction. Also, between that and the gray X-Men Marvel cards, I think it might have been X-Men cards that they released that had the power levels and everything.
Yeah.
That was my introduction. Yeah, the Phoenix storyline that made me really start to like Gambit and Rogue.
It had the best version of Rogue to date, I think.
Anna
Agreed.
Paquin was a huge disappointment after growing up with the '90s
Yes.
Rogue.
I was waiting for that Rogue. I'm like, where's her flying? Where's her southern accent?
Yeah,
Where's
where's
her
anything
anger?
related
Yeah.
to the character?
Oh my god.
Where's her
yeah.
sass? Okay,
Yeah.
cool.
Instead, she was a tool for another character.
Yeah. It was awful. I was not a fan of the movie's portrayal. I really, really love that show. That's what got me into comics.
The theme song was one of the greatest
It's great.
theme songs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I completely agree. Ryan, you're up.
I'm going to go with another 80s big surprise. I have several of those on my list. Thundercats.
That's mine. I've got that on my list too.
Yeah, that one, we just mentioned the best theme song. X-Men was not the best.
No.
Thundercats,
Thundercats.
I think, is if it's not the best, it's definitely
It's
right
so
up there.
good.
In the whole intro as a whole.
Mm.
I mean, you got all the characters' powers, you got an introduction to the villain, you got all that right there in a
I miss
40
that.
seconds,
Mhm.
right?
In
It's
intros.
great.
Like I miss when intros served a purpose.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
It
could
was a
watch
good-
that intro any day and be happy.
I
because it's
love that
awesome.
show.
The show itself, there were a lot of similar shows in the 80s, and
Absolutely.
Thundercats was one of the kind of group of shows that had a super masculine lead, and that used a sword that turned him into something even more
Right.
masculine, and but these were all cat themed, so that made it cool, right? But their lair, their hideout, I can't even remember the name of it, but it had
Cat's lair. It was just that.
it was like the cat that was like sitting
Yeah.
like this
Yeah.
way cooler mid He-Man's lair.
Yeah.
It looked like a freaking junkyard.
And then
Um,
Mumra was really cool. Like,
Yeah.
Mumra was
scary
cool, not as good
I
as
mean,
some other
he looks at
villains we'll
himself
talk
and he
about, I'm sure,
flies
but-
away, but whatever.
Yeah, I mean, he was a good villain. He had a lot of the tropes that apply to a lot of the 80s cartoons going on with him, but the protagonists I think were far more interesting. Panthro used nunchucks and was like the gearhead, drove the car and everything, and the dude throw the bolos and
Yeah.
Obviously, the strongest comparison is He-Man. It came out a little bit before Thundercats, and it has very similar parallels to it, story-wise and everything. And I mean, they've crossed them over multiple times in subsequent media. But I agree with you. I think Thundercats had a stronger lineup of characters. I never thought that the He-Man characters, at least the side characters, were as interesting until She-Ra was introduced.
I guess we can talk about He-Man at this point too, which was another one on my list.
Sure, let's
obviously,
do
but,
it.
I mean, because there are a lot of parallels. I
So
did
many.
think that probably objectively, Thundercats is a better show. He-Man was on first, and it was made to sell action figures. That's the only reason it was made. And I think that the characters were a little more interesting in their design, and I liked the cheesy way they were named and things like that.
Yeah.
They weren't as deep as the characters in Thundercats. But yeah, that show, just a fun fact about He-Man, it had 2 seasons and 130 episodes
That's
total.
insane.
So it was definitely like a quantity over quality. But I love the more ridiculous characters that you got in and HeMan versus Thundercats, but Thundercats was
Absolutely.
a deeper, I think a deeper show, which seems weird to say about Thundercats, but
I
deeper
feel
than HeMan.
I feel bad, but Thundercats actually had a really good reboot too. It didn't go.
Never watched it.
It was good. It was good for what it was. I know a lot of people were thrown off by the anime art style.
That's what got me.
As well as the bigger storylines. They were more fleshed out than they were in the 80s because it was.
See, and I have Thundercats on my list, but I have that Thundercats because I know you were into the 80s, so I'm like, let me put it on the new Thundercats. I loved it.
I think it was really well done.
I did
had
too.
fun watching it. I own it. It only ran for one season.
I know, which sucks, but it was weird. Like they went in, what was it, space at one point? I thought it was like a spaceship. It was very interesting, and Chitara was much more fleshed out as, you know, rather than a sex symbol than, you know.
Is that what she was in that 80s TV show for
mean,
kids?
For, you know, adults, people.
I mean, there's furries no matter what year
Well,
it is.
yes,
so.
but
I mean, she was wearing a thong.
That's true.
that is true. But
I think my
Thundercats was,
problem was with that Thundercats is like Rachel said, the styling. I grew up with, you know, the cheesy, like, huge man lion-o that was ridiculously proportioned, like He-Man, and, you know. And so when I think Thundercats, that's what I think. And it was tough for me to get past that. Even in the He-Man kind of had a show, too, that was a little bit of a reboot. It was pretty short-lived, but it had more anime-type styling, but didn't go quite as deep as the Thundercats did, with being almost pure, like, anime styling.
Yeah.
And I could deal with that a little bit better. I haven't watched it. I've watched clips, and I like the styling the more I watch it, so I may end up catching that at some point. But a lot of these shows older shows have had reboots on our list, so, and they're usually not as good. It seems like Thundercats may be the exception, but
I'm not saying it was as good. I'm saying it's good for what it was.
I agree. Yes,
I think it had its own identity, and that's why I kind of was able to stick with it. My nostalgia didn't tear it down.
Right.
I'm going to change gears. We've talked a lot about the 80s. We've talked a little bit about Marvel. I'm going to bring up some DC. And my favorite DC animated show to date is Young Justice.
That's when they got canceled, right? But then got the fans to get it back.
Yeah.
It hasn't come out yet, but yeah.
So, Cartoon Network hated this show because the toys didn't sell. The show, however, was written by some of the best comic book writers in the industry, and it focused on the younger, more sidekick-like characters in the DC universe. They were the main characters, but the Justice League was still, they weren't even in the full background. You know, there was a Justice League member in almost every episode, so that was, they were still a huge part of the universe. I love the continuity in it. I love the overall stories. I love that each character dealt with their own problems. I loved that they brought in new characters as time went on. There was a whole year in between seasons, like it was Sherlock or something, and they did such a great job continuing the storyline and making it fresh and, you know, giving them new challenges that I was just really impressed. And when it was finally canceled, because that last season Cartoon Network would show 3 episodes and then not show it for another 6 weeks, or, you know, they had so many hiatuses that it took almost a year to air one season. It was pretty bad. I'm really surprised it got a 3rd, and I'm happy with it.
It hasn't come out yet, so who knows? It could still
at this point they could still cancel it, but it's on Hulu, right? It's not
on Netflix.
I know it's not Cartoon Network,
so
they can't screw it up again.
Young Justice was really great. I liked that it was a team of teenagers essentially, but they weren't dealing with the typical teenage problems for the most part.
Yeah.
Like, there was obviously like, oh, she has a crush on me, blah blah blah, you know, the superficial storylines, but the deeper arcs for the individual characters, you know, who is my dad, you know, like, where did I come from, am I just him except smaller, you know?
Will my friends accept me if they know who I really am?
Right, yeah. McGann's storyline was
Artemis.
great, and Artemis's storyline, yeah. And Superboy dealing with, you know, living in the shadow of such a huge character,
and him rejecting him completely.
Yeah, that was good, and I really liked when Batman came in and was like, Clark, you need to treat him better, you know, and, be something more for him. And the Justice League being involved with it was okay. I mean, I think that the season 1 finale, when they have to end up, I'm not going to spoil it, but they end up fighting members of the Justice League. I thought that was really cleverly done. And the use of the Justice League, even though it was fairly minor through the rest of the season, made that more emotional. And, Green Arrow was great in it, which I love when they get Green Arrow right, because he's one of my favorite characters. And Black Canary, also very great.
She was done really well in this.
Really all the Justice League characters were pretty well done. I don't really have any complaints about any of them from that show. So, I really like. That's one of the few DC TV shows that I've actually watched, and animated shows that I've watched, and I like it a lot,
I know I love a show when I can rewatch it, and I've watched both seasons of Young Justice, I think, 3 times through now, so I really enjoy it.
Ian hasn't seen it, but he's going to have a whole list of things to watch after tonight.
I will. I'm taking notes as we speak.
Doc Rev did say that he's going to watch that show based on your recommendation to anime, by the way.
All right.
He said that in chat, so.
I will take his word for it. So I'm going to bounce off of you and keep the DC train going. And I'm going with the original Justice League.
Good call.
This was
really good show.
Something that, really tugged on my heartstrings, because you have Kevin Conroy back as Batman, and he is my Batman.
Yes.
So, and having Bruce Timm write it, and, having design stuff, and Paul Dini coming back in. This cartoon is very much a lot of people's versions of these characters. Like, that version of Wonder Woman, Susan Eisenberg, is my Wonder Woman.
I love her.
It's very much, it's the kind of thing I picture as the darkest DC cartoon in that time era.
I completely agree.
If that makes sense. What is happening?
We got a request in chat for Ray Stans to write
Hot Girl?
Hot Girl, yeah.
It's just put your figure. I thought I said put your finger.
No.
I was like,
It does, chat does work, so yeah. If you're listening to this later, sorry about that, but yes, if you're here live, it is a live stream, so.
But yeah, I love Justice League. I love that they fleshed out other villains, too, that we didn't get to see. We saw Star Sapphire. We saw more of Luthor, Gorilla Grodd, Grundy, Felix Faust.
Which is one that doesn't get a lot of love normally.
Yeah. Joker appeared in a few episodes with Harley, and it's just, a great combination of all of the DC characters.
If you didn't have an emotional reaction to Hawkgirl flying away after telling Green Lantern that she loves him, then I don't know if you're still human.
That was rough.
That whole Thanagar war, that was intense.
And I love that this Green Lantern was Jon Stewart. It was not Hal Jordan everything else.
Yes.
It was Jon Stewart, and that's my Green Lantern. That's who I think of as Green Lantern. I don't think of Hal Jordan. I think of Jon Stewart. But yeah, that's mine.
Yeah, I love that show. So much.
Never watched it. Like I said, I haven't watched a lot of the DC animated stuff.
So that show is really good to just pop on and catch an episode. There's not a huge overarching plot.
Yeah, unless you do like a part 2, you're like, oh nope, let me go back. Yeah, but yeah,
it's always part 1 and then part 2, and you can watch them together. You can watch them separate. It's cool.
I keep intending to watch them, but I think the Batman the Animated Series is intimidating me, so I haven't gotten into any of them because that one there's like a watch order and it's all screwed up all over the place, so I haven't really.
It's interesting.
Okay, so I guess it's my turn. Yeah. I'm going to bring it to a more modern show. I know you haven't watched it. I'm not sure if Ian's watched it, but it's very popular right now, and it's one that I very much enjoy. It's called Rick and Morty.
Yes.
You may have heard of it. It's kind of popular
right now. I've heard of it.
Now.
I've seen maybe an episode. It didn't catch me.
Okay. Well, I don't know what's wrong with you guys, especially you and Derreck. It's like...
There was a character called Mr. Poopy Butthole, and it upset me.
And, well, I mean, that's the thing about the show. Is
it didn't look like a butthole, though.
They don't care.
If it upsets you or not.
Yeah, and they don't care about anything. They don't care whether it upsets you. They care about making a show that's ridiculous and entertaining.
Are they all on acid there? I mean, I'm just wondering.
I don't think they're on acid, but I think that they may have done some acid in the past. If you haven't seen the show, it's basically... a show that it's a grandpa that's basically the smartest man in any universe, parallel or our universe, and he's his own like MacGuffin most of the time, and just can get himself out of any situation. But it plays on all the sci-fi tropes, all the old sci-fi movies. Most of the episode titles are parodies of movie titles.
Yeah, I mean, just the main characters, they look like Doc Brown and
I was going to
Marty.
say that. That's very...
And that's obviously where they got the inspiration for the characters. But they're on such an extreme scale. It's like if you took Doc Brown and dialed him up to 1 million, and then if you took Marty and like all his insecurities and dialed those to 1 billion, then then you get close to characters.
Heavy.
It's very heavy.
It's very inappropriate, right?
It's extremely inappropriate.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean it's on Adult Swim. So just for example, there's one episode where Morty wants to have this girl from his school fall in love with him. So
and that's the boy, right?
That's the little boy. Yeah. Rick makes him a love potion, essentially, and so he gives it to her, and within 2 minutes, the entire world has fallen in love with Morty. And then also, they have all turned into head-eating alien bug monsters, and he's tried several, like, formulas that he's dispersed into the world to fix it, and it just makes things worse. And so eventually, Rick just gives up on the entire universe and takes Morty to a parallel universe where they never used the potion, but instead the potion blew up into a tragic accident in the garage, and their dead bodies are laying there. Their alternate selves' dead bodies, mutilated, like eyeballs hanging out and stuff. And so they have to go bury their dead bodies in the backyard, and then take over the identities in this parallel universe. So
that seems like a lot for a cartoon.
I mean, it's kind of like some of the other shows we talked about in terms of the like tragedies of the show being the comedy a lot of the time, but there's also just a lot of tragedy that's not funny, like Morty dragging his dead self to the grave where he's going to be burying his dead self. It's like completely numb and just like doesn't know how to deal with it.
I don't know.
Yeah, and some people do. It's just like it hits a lot of notes. And I think that you and Derek would very much enjoy it. It's only 2.5 seasons at this point, so you're not that far behind. And they're only half-hour episodes. But, if you haven't watched it, you should definitely check it out. It's ridiculous in all the best ways.
That's awesome. So I'm going to talk about a show that was in MTV's cartoon phase when they were doing Ren and Stimpy and Beavis and Butthead. And I almost went with Daria because it's a really good show.
I do like Daria. Yeah.
I love Daria. So good. However, I'm choosing to go with Clone High. Now, it was short-lived. Only
no clue what that is.
Only like 10 episodes.
I've seen screenshots from it.
It got canceled fast. So the whole premise is these historical figures are cloned by the scientist and put in high school. The main characters are Abe Lincoln, Cleopatra, Joan of Arc, Gandhi, and John Kennedy. And
that sounds ridiculous.
It is ridiculous. Everything about it is dialed up to
1 million.
No, not 1 million. It's like dialed up to 50.
Okay.
It's still pretty ridiculous, but it's got some really good voice actresses and actors. Will Forte stars. Krista Miller from Drew Carey and Scrubs fame, Nicole Sullivan from Mad TV. They're all part of it.
Cool.
And it's just hilarious. Yeah. At one point, Gandhi joins up with George Washington Carver, and they form a detective agency called Black and Tan.
What?
This was also when the Tom Green show was on, and Tom Green was a character on there, and he commits suicide at some point.
I have a day off tomorrow. I'm going to watch this.
Like, it is hilarious and ridiculous.
Is it in the 90s?
Bad. No, it was early 2000s.
Okay.
It was like 2001, 2002.
Oh my god. That's hilarious.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Never seen it. But I did see Daria.
Yeah. Daria was great.
Was.
I'll talk about Daria too. It was fantastic. This sarcastic, sardonic, she was almost goth and almost emo, but really she was just apathetic in her, optimistic, I guess, or pretentious lifestyle. She had a very intense family. She just wanted to like do her own thing, and that was eat pizza and hang out with her best friend. So,
which minus the best friend part, that's like 90% of what I want to do, just eat pizza.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right, anything on chat that we should address? Nothing. Anything?
Nothing. There's some other suggestions
Yeah.
on some other shows, but mostly it's just chatting amongst the people in chat.
Which
peeps.
is totally fine.
Yeah. Continue,
Derek
please.
a little while ago said that Voltron was one of his. And
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a good one.
Um,
Good reboot, too.
That's true. So I'm gonna say my number one since we're kind of getting crunched on time.
We're not. We're at
Are we?
8:46. We're fine.
Oh, okay. Well,
Or you can say your number one.
no, I'll wait for the number one. We all do our number ones.
I don't have a
So
number one. I just have all the shows I like.
we have a number one.
Fine.
Speaking of, we're gonna go with the inappropriate cartoon still. Archer.
Yes.
I absolutely love Archer. This show keeps on reinventing itself each season with different stuff. Like this past season, they were, Archer Noir, basically.
Yes.
It was extremely funny. And, I mean, in one episode, they, try and protect and kidnap the Pope. That's an episode. And it's one of the funniest episodes I think I've ever seen. The show will make you laugh. It'll make you cry. It'll make you guess your sexuality. It will do a
Guess
whole...
it?
I don't
Second
have to
guess.
guess.
Excuse me.
Oh, okay.
Second guess. Second
okay.
guess. But it's extremely funny. It's on FX.
The only bit of Archer I've seen was when they did the crossover with Bob's Burgers.
So
Yes,
good.
and that's funny.
Yeah, it was
That's
great.
a great...
Was that an Archer episode or a Bob's Burgers
It's an
episode?
Archer episode.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, I saw that.
Archer also started a season with him being Bob. Like, he's in the witness protection program,
Yeah,
and that's how
that's the episode that he saw.
There's a Bob's Burgers episode where it's,
I don't know. I saw the
it's
one
the
where it was
Archer
like
cast.
yeah, that's what this one was, I think.
They've had
Oh,
Bob's
maybe I
Burgers
don't know.
has done an episode in their style of animation, and Archer's
Oh,
done an
okay.
episode.
This one was
In Archer's animation style?
animation.
So that's an
Yeah.
Archer episode. Yes,
It's like
that's his just.
the first episode of season 2, season 3.
Yeah, that's like
Yeah.
his witness protection episode.
I love that
Which is
episode.
so funny because they get the cast from Bob's Burgers there,
Yep.
and it's just it's hilarious, and Mallory is funny, and it's just all these characters I feel like are a bit of my personality. So I'm like all of the agency combined, and I don't know how I feel about that,
Right.
but I'm gonna go with it.
Okay.
So
Okay, that's good. Chat is letting us know that we should talk about Space Ghost and the Brack Show. And
I have no clue what those are.
I think I've watched like 2 episodes of Space Ghost, and that was back a long time ago, so I don't really have enough to say about it.
I enjoyed Space Ghost. I love Zorak. I loved the Brack song. I preferred Harvey Birdman though when it came
Right.
to
I did watch Harvey Birdman.
Harvey Birdman. Where's that? Sorry.
It's okay.
Okay, Ryan, you're up.
Okay. I'm going to go with yet another satirical show, because apparently that's the only kind I like. The Tick.
Yes.
So it was based on comic books, so it's not, completely original thing. But if you haven't seen it, it's basically a satire, again, of superhero genre. A giant blue 400-pound gorilla of a man that wears a suit that looks like a tick, and it goes by the tick and has no powers like a tick, is defending an unnamed city full of superheroes and supervillains. And just is really dumb. So the situations he gets himself into are pretty funny. It's full of, again, weirdly named characters, which also I'm oddly drawn to in shows like Chairface Chippendale. Gosh, I had them all listed. Okay, Professor Chrome Dome, the Forehead, the Flater Mouse. Yeah.
What?
So, yeah, it was ridiculous. There was one episode
Opera.
where literally his own mustache was the villain.
Yes.
He grew a sentient mustache. He had a villain ask him if he sucks blood, and he just intimidates him, but he doesn't actually, with this fact that he thinks maybe he sucks blood, but he doesn't actually suck blood. It's like, if you haven't seen it, it's nothing short of hilarious. Like, every episode, it's nothing serious in the show at all. It's just comedy and just satire, and it's really, really great. The voice actors for it were perfect. I don't know the person that voiced the Tick and Arthur, but when I watched the new show on Amazon, I kind of was hoping for the voice actors from the original because it didn't get the same charm for me. But yeah, it's a great and classic show. And if you haven't seen anything like that, you should check it out.
Okay. I think we have time for one more round after my pick here. So prep your number ones or whatever. I am going to... This is tough. I'm going to talk about... it's already been brought up in chat, so I'm not going to talk about Futurama, although I absolutely adore it.
That's an honorable mention for mine.
It had a lot of fantastic episodes. I'm going to talk about Sailor Moon, because I connected with that a lot as a child. I connected with that a lot. It's a TV show featuring 9 women as superheroes, and all of them, every single one of them is distinct. They're individualized. Sometimes they get along, sometimes they don't. I connected with, I could be any character on any given day, and I loved it. It made me want to grow up and do good in the world. A lot of these superhero shows, I wanted to just have powers, but this one made me want to be a good person. I wanted to, because they were equally as good out of costume that they were in. Mm-hmm. And I really feel like if you have seen any of them, because they've had 4 different versions of the show by now, you have some sort of idea why people like it.
Yes, I agree. It was a fun show. And it was, back in the 90s when anime was kind of taking over this, or at least my generation.
Yeah.
So my generation was very much raised off of, Yu-Gi-Oh!, Sailor Moon, and Pokemon.
And Dragon Ball Z.
And Dragon Ball Z, yeah. So those were the big, contenders for it. But Sailor Moon I love because of their transformations. It was always fun.
Yeah. My dad would always walk in and be like, why doesn't the villain hit them during these things? Like, that doesn't make any sense.
Because it's an anime. They gotta build up and they use magic.
He said the same thing for Power Rangers, too. He's like, they're yelling all these dinosaurs and the villain can't just walk up and hit them.
Logic.
All right, Ian, your turn.
All right, so we're doing number ones now.
Last one,
all right.
Last round, guys. Last round.
My number one is Batman the Animated Series. Shocker. This was the cartoon.
Is it because you identify with a Brooklyn loudmouth?
The mayor of New York?
Harley, sweetie. Harley.
Yes.
Did you watch the show?
Just a little bit.
Okay.
This is a show that you can watch over and over again. The animation does not go out of style. It's Bruce Timm's designs. Paul Dini has been, wrote a bunch of episodes. It introduced us to a lot of characters that are now super popular, like Harley.
Yes.
It had some great episodes with Batman's relationship with Catwoman. It had some great episodes with female power, with Harley and Ivy teaming up together, with Joker doing stuff. Introduction of Nightwing, Batgirl. They just had an episode where it was just like, a police episode with Commissioner Gordon and Detective Bullock and Montoya. This was my Batman. I grew up with this, and every single time I watch it, I'm like, just the nostalgia factor just goes up and beyond the roof for me.
Yeah.
So, you had Kevin Conroy as Batman, you had Mark Hamill as the Joker, like the most iconic Joker, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
You had all these people that, voice all these extremely well-known and popular characters. And for a lot of kids and a lot of people, my age, those are those versions. Kind of like how the Justice League is with other people. So, Batman, for sure. And it was dark, it was gritty. It was everything Batman should be.
I'm not disagreeing. It was fantastic.
That's ice.
Derek just cringed.
He did.
Oh. I'm done.
With the ice or with talking?
In all
both.
fairness, he's been sick.
Yeah, I have been sick, so this is very nice.
Well, who invited a sick guy to the podcast?
I'm on the medications.
He invited himself last week.
Yeah.
Oh, well, that's not allowed anymore.
I'm on the antibioticals. It's okay.
I don't think that's what they are.
Go ahead.
Okay. Well, we're not. I want to reinforce that mine. I don't have a ranking, so it's just another one that I really like. The Real Ghostbusters, big surprise, right?
Yeah.
it was a really one of the 80s cartoons I think with a little more substance than the others. The villains in it were a lot of them like actual mythical creatures, or you had like the Boogeyman, Sam Hain, Cthulhu was a villain in one episode. You had just a lot of storylines that were really cool. They kind of changed the characters from the movies a little bit. You finally got to see Janine with a proton pack in her own flight suit, which was cool. Some of the storylines were really dark. If you go back and watch our Ghostbusters reboot pitch that we did a while back, I had a storyline from the real Ghostbusters cartoon that I wanted to turn into a movie involving Egon, which would have been great with working with Harold Ramis's passing. It would have utilized that in a more respectful way than not than what happened. But anyway, I'm not gonna get into that.
I liked the bust.
It was fine. Yeah. It wasn't disrespectful. No. But yeah, I just think that as far as the 80s cartoons go, it was one of the better ones in terms of the actual substance and content. And it went for a long time.
Yeah, so. I'm not going to
disagree. I didn't know they had a cartoon.
That cartoon.
And they had Extreme Ghostbusters later on.
Yeah. So was it the original voice cast of the movie? No? Okay. No.
It had good voice casts on there, though. Like Dave Coulier played Venkman.
And
I can see that.
There was a couple other voice actors that are still doing voice acting today that are very popular. One of them was at one of our local cons. I can't remember his name, though.
Yeah. But no, it ran for 7 seasons. Mm-hmm. It had substance from start to finish. Their writers did not give up halfway through or anything like that. It was a really good show. Yeah,
and it also had a lot of toy lines coming out. You got all the ghosts and stuff that wasn't even related to the show. It came out as a real Ghostbusters toy line. I still have the real Ghostbusters Proton Pack, the little kids one that you could get, and the little thing that shot little styrofoam pellets. Mine still shoots them. So
nice.
But yeah, it's that show was very iconic and a staple of my childhood. So
yeah,
and Extreme Ghostbusters is pretty good too.
Is it a continuation of that?
No.
Oh, okay.
This one was like Egon is their like kind of mentor to this group that had a goth girl and a young man in a wheelchair. So it was
next gen.
Yeah, it was more like a more modern. Is kind of old at this point, but it's more modern. Right. Like you had people from different backgrounds and things like that than the movie did. So yeah, that one's worth checking out too. I don't think it's as good as the original Real Ghostbusters, but for somebody who wasn't really watching that in the 80s, it would probably hold up better than the original show.
Okay.
All right, so my favorite cartoon of all time, and maybe even my favorite TV show, I'm not sure, is Avatar: The Last Airbender.
Oh, that's what that is. Okay.
I am addicted to that show. It's an American anime. It's done in an anime style. However, it was made in America, drawn in Korea, South Korea, the good Korea. And it was beautiful. There were comedic moments that had me rolling. There were moments that still make me cry after the 4th or 5th viewing.
Mm-hmm.
Did they make you cry worse than the movie did, or?
No, I don't think there was a.
That makes me
no, I'm pretty sure there was.
No.
There was not.
Yeah, I definitely think there was.
That was a fan film.
Yeah.
Most expensive fan film.
I bet Joss Whedon would rather watch that in Justice League, though.
Oh man, maybe. Who knows? That was.
Anyway, sorry, I didn't mean.
No, you're good. Not every episode. There was a couple stinkers in there, just a few.
A good majority of them, though, are really good.
They're solid, and they develop so well with the characters. Not one character goes unloved, and so many things are brought back. Things are never forgotten.
Mm-hmm. It's a good continuity.
It's beautiful.
Do you have a favorite character or episode?
No. Favorite standalone episode. If you haven't seen the series, if you want to see it, I recommend just watching the Ember Island Players in season 3. It actually sums up the first, or like all the seasons. Mm-hmm. It's the last episode before the big series finale, which was 5 parts and amazing. And it kind of gives you the blurb
Yes.
to the show. So
it's one where it's the play one, right?
Yeah.
Yes, it's
I
so
love
funny.
the Brightland players. I don't know if I have a favorite character. I have a character I would cosplay.
This is who I think it is.
I want to do Katara.
Yeah.
I want to do Katara so bad. I love her. My brother has compared me to Azula before, which is a huge insult.
See, that's my favorite character.
Well, because Grey is...
No, that's not only the reason.
No, I was going to say she's a fantastic voice actor.
Well, yes, but God, Azula's good. She's completely evil and she's like, what, 15 years old?
Yeah.
And she can shoot lightning out of her fingers, which is cool.
Yep.
But I have my favorite episode, I think, is the one where they're all at the beach, the Fire Nation's at the beach, and they're playing volleyball. It's super funny, and it very much, shows her empathetic side and shows her, human side, but still is making her a badass, so it's fun.
It's one of those things where they deal with teenagers well, like Young Justice does. It's not just a, this person's got a crush, or, this person got her period. It's so much more than that. I'm a writer. I don't think I could ever write a better story. I'm going to rewatch this show until I die.
Now, how do you feel about
the spin-off Legend of Korra is fantastic. It's really well done. It was not given the love from Nickelodeon, so it got same kind of Young Justice treatment where very long hiatuses in between, and at times they were told to extend their seasons, which pissed off the creators, and at times they were told they were going to shorten them. So Legend of Korra was not as good because it suffered from outside sources.
I agree. All right, do you want to do honorable mentions or no?
Oh, we're 3 minutes over. I talked a lot about the show.
Never mind.
There was a lot of big shows that we didn't mention.
Yes.
Really fast, Futurama is one of my favorite shows of all time. I love that. I grew up with gargoyles, and I thought that was a brilliant concept. I really feel that my Trekkie boyfriend would like it too, because Trek actors were the voice actors. And then out of all the Avengers cartoons, Earth's Mightiest Heroes was my favorite because, again, I'm a sucker for continuity. So those were my extras that I had.
My extras I had real quick. I briefly talked about Pokemon because that's what my generation was raised off of. Dexter's Lab.
So cute.
And then the Clone Wars 3D animated show, because that's the only 3D show that I had on here. And it was very well done.
We didn't mention Simpsons or Family Guy. Those are two really big animated shows, but they weren't on my list. I had Robot Chicken, King of the Hill, Dr. Cat's Professional Therapist. I also had Pokemon, Dungeons and Dragons, Venture Brothers was one of my honorable mentions, Gargoyles also, Muppet Babies. And
good
then
one.
X-Men also.
Yeah, those were good.
Yeah.
All right, well, we had some good choices. Let us know what your favorite TV shows are in the comments below. You can also follow us on every social media at Heroes Podcasts with an S at the end because we're more than one show. We are on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and Tumblr. We are also on YouTube and Twitch and Patreon. We have a Patreon.
Yeah. Give us your money.
Give us your money. Okay, so
pie.
All right, so Ian and I have a fashion show called Costume Couture. We talk about costumes, cosplay, TV movies, everyday fashion, music videos, that kind of stuff. And Ian came up with the fun suggestion that if we get 2 more Patreon subscribers by 1st of October, then in
$5 each.
$5 each.
At least.
Or more.
Yes, at least.
In October, we will have a pie eating contest. And our patrons can choose the flavor of the pie.
Just don't make it nasty.
Yeah, I mean...
If it's bug pie,
bug
then I
pie.
have to do that. Just keep it in mind.
I will say this. I will refuse. I will walk out. I will quit the entire show if you make me eat peach. I cannot eat peaches.
I'll eat the peaches then.
I will vomit.
I will not eat banana meringue.
Okay, that's it. That's
but they'll both eat bugs, so I can come up with crickets and mealworms if.
Ooh,
I
protein.
would rather eat that than peaches.
Really?
Sounds like you guys have a good vote to
all right, cool.
weigh in on.
I'm done.
Get us those
Alright.
people, then we'll talk.
Alright, guys. Anything else tonight? Okay.
I think I'm good.
Then next week, join us Tuesday at 8 p.m. Central Standard Time for our ideal Star Trek crew. We're going to be building it with 2 guests, and we're very excited.
Yep.
You.